Hey guys, today in this mechanical explanation video, I want to cover what it means to have a neutral wrist at ball release, and then some of the benefits that having a neutral wrist at ball release when throwing a fastball can lead to. So let's go ahead and look at some pro examples here. First, we'll look at Zack Wheeler, and we'll get him into ball release here. And boom, there we can see he's at ball release. And so first off, what is a neutral wrist? So ultimately, when we talk about a neutral wrist, we're talking about a wrist that is completely neutral at the point of ball release. So as the ball starts to roll off of the fingers. Now, what does neutral mean? So looking here at the wrist, ultimately what neutral means is that we want to see this portion of the wrist right here pointed at the intended throwing target at ball release. What that's gonna allow for is that's gonna allow for the maximum amount of force to be put into the baseball. And generally, if you're not kind of getting on the side of the baseball, and we'll talk about that here in a second, you're ultimately going to get the highest spin efficiency out of your fastball as a result of being right behind the baseball. So, what would it be? What does it look like for a player to not have a neutral wrist? So ultimately, if Zach was here at ball release and he were to prematurely pronate his wrist, meaning he's pronating the ball into ball release, or like before ball release, he's starting to get that pronation where he's turning the palm away, then ultimately that would be one example of what it looks like to not ultimately have a neutral wrist at ball release. Another example would be if he's supinating, meaning he's rotating the palm inwards as I am here at ball release, then he would be getting on the side of the baseball. And either one of those, pronation or supination before ball release or into ball release, are not good things. Now, we usually like to see pronation as a part of a healthy deceleration pattern after ball release, which I'll show here in a second. But the position that we see Zach's wrists in here, where we can see it's neutral, pointed at the intended throwing target, and the fingers are directly behind the baseball, that's going to allow him to maximize the amount of force that he's able to put into the baseball into ball release. So that's ultimately what a neutral wrist is. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Zach does here right after ball release. So boom. What do we see after ball release? So we see a neutral wrist. Now, as we go through ball release, we can see him pronating, meaning that he's rotating that forearm and wrist away from him. So there you can clearly see that the throwing hand essentially is pointed towards third base. So ultimately, that's part of a healthy deceleration pattern. That's something that we want to see. But we're winding Zach into ball release. We can clearly see that his wrist is in a neutral position. So let's go ahead and take a look at one more athlete here. Here we got Jacob deGrom. Let's get him into ball release. And boom, there he is at ball release. Again, what can we see? We can clearly see when looking at his wrist, it's pointed at the intended throwing target. He's not prematurely supinating or pronating that wrist, and his fingers are directly behind the baseball as a result. That's going to allow him to apply the maximum amount of force he can into the baseball there. And then again, what we're going to see here right after ball release is we're going to see deGrom go into pronation with the forearm and wrist, meaning that we're going to clearly see his hand begin to rotate away towards that third base side. Again, that is a part of a healthy deceleration pattern. But ultimately in this video, what we're covering is where is he at ball release, where is his wrist. He's in a perfectly neutral position, pointed directly at the target, which is ultimately going to allow him to apply the maximum amount of force into the baseball. So I hope you guys enjoyed this mechanical explanation, and thanks for watching.